You're listening to a 4x4 Radio Network podcast.
The Centresteer Podcast, a Land Rover podcast by Land Rover owners. Welcome to the 30th edition of the Centresteer Podcast. It is the 27th of September, 2015, and it's a marvelous autumn day here in southwestern Pennsylvania. I'm John Costage, your host. Southwestern Pennsylvania is supposed to have the most colorful autumn in years, and so this is October will be a great month for you to take your Land Rover and go out and enjoy the colorful leaves here in southwestern Pennsylvania. So I encourage you to get out and see that and report back to us, of course, where you go. I'm going to try to do that in my 109. Assuming the 109 is rolling.
Well, if it breaks down, you'll have more time to enjoy the scenery.
If I'm in the right place. We have a great and packed show for you today, and I'm saying that before we even record it. We have a good lineup for you. Looking at it right now, we're going to talk about the news. We're going to talk about the Volkswagen diesel cheating business. We have an M word for you. Graham and Louisa Bell from A to A are going to join us a little bit later, and we're going to finish up with a report on the Stowe event by Morgan for our Heritage segment. So again, we got a packed show for you. And we'll get to it in just a moment, but I'd like to remind you that we are part of the 4x4 Radio Network, and I will encourage you to go out and check all the other shows that are 4x4 related out at 4x4radionetwork.com, including ourselves. Joining me in the studio is Harold.
I'm Harold, and welcome to Centresteer XXX.
And live via Skype.
Hi, I'm Morgan from Vermont. I totally welcome everybody to come see the foliage this year in Vermont as well. It's going to be really nice. It's going to be a nice, warm, dry fall as well for us. So
come for the foliage and stay for the maple syrup.
Absolutely. You kind of have to stay a while for the maple syrup.
Well, you get
at least
sticky.
To get the fresh stuff. Definitely.
You may notice that Morgan may have, I'm hoping he does, has a more rich audio quality to his voice. That's because I went ahead and sent him a Yeti microphone, and he's using that now. How's that working out for you, Morgan?
It's working pretty well. I kind of feel like I need to get one of those like 30s or 40s radio announcer voices, though, with this classic microphone in front of me.
Did we edit you in post-production? Yes, I'm here in Stowe. It's wonderful. The Land Rovers are out and all about.
Exactly.
Sorry.
It's going to take some practice on my part.
I'm just thinking about the product placement potential here, whether we can generate some revenue for the podcast by mentioning the product we're using.
Oh, there we go. I'm sure they're so excited to hear we're using a Yeti microphone.
Well, it's probably better potential than the product placement money we'll get for using the crap we're using here in the studio.
Yeah, we've been for months. We've been trying to figure out what the problem is with Harold always sounding lower in audio quality than I do, even though we're opposite each other, using the same equipment.
John keeps turning me down so we can hear him better.
That's what they want you to believe, but it is not true. Let's get right to the news. We got a packed show today, so we'll go ahead and get started. And first, though, we'd like to do a shout out to our listener Derek in St. Louis. He won the best in class with his Land Rover Series 2A or 2. I always forget which he has.
Well, it's at least a 2.
It's at least a 2. At the St. Louis All British Car and Cycle Show. And it's the best in the Midwest. And so they have a whole bunch of different classes. And they have looks like they have four or five Land Rover classes. They have Range Rovers one, Discovery's another, Defenders is another, Freelander another, and then the Series class. I think he won in the Series class.
Does this mean that Derek has the best Series truck in the Midwest?
That's what that would indicate, yes.
Interesting.
So congratulations, Derek, on your winning the best in show for your best in class, for your show, your Series truck.
Derek is now installing a bigger door so he can get his inflated head through it.
Yes. Well, he had the tailgate down and he had some tea there, and it was.
Of course, he did.
Pictures. Yeah, he's really well done.
One must do that sort of thing.
So first up in Jag Land Rover news, JLR has revealed they have an EV concept and a strategy. And basically, all this means is it's a test bed, and they are going to use it to consider look at any plug-in hybrids or other hybrid technology that might be coming up. And this is stuff that's 5 or 10 years down the line. It's like a one-off test bed vehicle. It's not actually anything for production just yet.
It's strictly a development mule for developing new electric powertrains.
Yes, and so it's apparently, it's out there. I think there may be two if I read the article, but basically it's just these are test bed vehicles. There's a concept called the EMHEV. It's a Range Rover Evoque that's been fitted with a mild hybrid system, and some other things going on there. So that's just I only point that out because we talk about the different powertrains, and of course we've got diesel issues that we'll be talking about later. But Jag is out there doing some work, doing some development, and that's ongoing,
as they should.
Exactly.
And it's good. It's good to see. It looks like they're using 2 electric motors, which back in I guess fall of 2014, Tesla started doing dual motors in theirs, and they actually found their setup to be more efficient, so you get better range. So it would be nice to see some better range out of the Land Rovers, and maintaining their all-wheel drive abilities or off-road abilities.
Is this the article that I remember correctly, where the electric motors were assisting the engine and not driving the wheels? Is that where this I read that? Do you remember seeing that?
These concepts appear to actually be fully electric.
Yeah, no. Well, there's one of them. I think they have 2 concepts here, and I found the part of the article here. So that concept E, which is an MHEV, whatever that means, I have no idea. It uses an electric motor and battery pack to simply assist the internal combustion engine rather than for an electric driving mode. So that would. So it's not, in that case, probably not an all-electric vehicle.
Well, the question there is whether it's directly coupled to the engine or whether one power plant drives one end of the vehicle and the other one drives the other.
Oh, that could be interesting.
Because then basically you've got 2 different complete drivetrains in the same vehicle, and it allows you to develop each independently, actually.
Well, this sounds like there's no, like the electric motors don't seem to drive the vehicle. This is, but again, this is a test bed, so it's...
Right, but it could, depending on how you do it.
Gotcha.
And interestingly, it is with a diesel engine.
Yes.
As it should be.
Yes, Smithers, yes. So that's out there. So Land Rover is doing developments, especially on new powertrains in the future. Speaking of diesel, as we'll be talking about, this seems like this will be the diesel episode of the Centresteer podcast. Autoblog reviewed the 2016 Range Rover Sport TD6. They had a first drive. And in short, they loved it. They thought it was a fantastic vehicle, very, very quiet, not only on the inside, but also on the outside. Apparently, they've redone the engine mounts and I think some underpinnings there that they said that doesn't transmit into the cabin. There's a laminated glass that also reduces the sound from coming in to the cabin. And somehow that also translates to the outside. So if he said when they had left the vehicle running to take pictures and they were walking around the vehicle, you could barely hear it.
Not a real surprise. That's the nature of the modern diesel engine technology. It's interesting now that the news is getting wind of it now that they're starting to bring them into this country.
Yes, and mileage was outstanding. 28 miles per gallon on the highway, 22 in the city, a 25 combined cycle. Comparing that with 17, 22, and 19 for a supercharged V6 petrol engine. And that has a $1,500 diesel premium.
Which is a pretty good value, actually.
Absolutely. So, so they're out there. Now we have a Range Rover Sport diesel in the United States and available. And if you happen to buy one and you want to check out the leaves in the fall here in southwestern Pennsylvania, be sure to stop by the Pittsburgh area, and I'd like to go for a ride.
Yeah, it would be nice if they offered not only the TDV6, but also the TDV8. 6 is good, 8's better.
8 is better. Yeah. Yes. I don't think there'd be any. None of us would disagree with that. Moving on, and this is in our Range Rover segment. There's a lot of Range Rover news this past month. There's has been announced from the Special Vehicles Operations, that new unit that they had stood up. They're going to have an ultra luxurious 200,000 pound Range Rover is on the way, and this is going to compete with Rolls-Royce and Bentley, specifically going to compete with Bentley's luxury new Balenciaga SUV.
You should point out here that the 200,000 pounds refers to the price, not the weight.
Are you sure?
I almost suggested the same.
Although there may not be that much difference.
So the article is interesting because they had talked to JLR, and they said, hey, they see demand in this segment of the market, and they're going to pursue it, and they don't want to cede that to the new Bentley SUV. So good for them.
Well, anybody with a brain shouldn't be buying an SUV from Bentley. If you have that kind of money, buy it from people who invented the segment.
Hence the reason to have a 200,000-pound luxury.
Well, there you go.
SUV,
you need to be if you know there's people with that kind of money that just want to throw it away. You want to be there to catch it.
Yeah. Have you? I haven't done any research on the Bentley SUV. Is it going to be like all other Bentley and SUVs? And Rolls Royces? I know they're separate now, but is it going to be basically oriented towards the passenger more than the driver?
Well, that's historically not been the case with Bentley. I mean, for a while there, when Bentley was constrained by Rolls-Royce, they became much the same car. But if you go back, much further in their history, Bentley was about the driver, and the Rolls-Royce was about the passenger. Okay. And if a guy had lots of money, he'd have two cars. He'd have the Rolls that he got driven around in during the week, and then he'd have the Bentley that he played with on the weekend.
Understood. So hopefully this Bentley SUV should be oriented.
It could be very much a driver experience vehicle.
Okay, good. And further on in Range Rover news, if you also have some additional money to burn because you 200,000 pounds, there's the 400,000 euro Range Rover Sentinel, which is basically a bulletproof SUV. There's just all sorts of protection equipment. There's if you can't get out of the vehicle, there's a trap door on the bottom. There's bulletproof glass. There's chemical suppression systems. The gas can't get inside the cabin.
I'd love to have the contract for testing something like that.
There's armored roof and floor structures, and it can withstand 2 simultaneous grenade explosions. Run flat tires. It has 2 electrical systems. It has 2 batteries, and it's always charging the second battery so that if something happens to the first, there's still power from the second battery.
So it's a luxury MRAP.
Yes, and
for the well-heeled troops of the world.
That's exactly. And there's even a special control. It looks like a remote control, really. It's a special remote control that would make James Bond, I think, shudder because it has all sorts of cool stuff on it. There's an external speaker system. You can do a PA in and out of the vehicle, all sorts of...
Can you operate the vehicle with your iPhone?
No, I don't think you can. That doesn't have CarPlay yet.
Okay, so it's not truly James Bond yet.
That's true, not yet. But at 400,000 euros or $447,000, you also get a full driver training program and scheduled house calls each year by a specialized Land Rover technician.
I think you ought to at least have 12 months of free whiskey replenishment, too.
Hear that, Land Rover? Hear that, JLR? Get right on that.
I mean, you could get that with your Holland & Holland Range Rover for a whole lot less money than that, so that should just be part of the deal.
And finally, in Range Rover news, in Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, in her as part of her, not really part of her tour, but she was in Scotland, and some hikers were up in Scotland, and they saw 3 Range Rovers coming at them, and they wondered if it was the Queen. They knew she was in town. And in fact, it was. And she drove by in a Range Rover. I assume a full-size one. It didn't say the model, but and she gave them a nice big hearty wave. So
she waved whilst mowing them down.
No, she didn't mow them down.
At least it wasn't the one-finger salute.
She gave them a nice hearty wave, and she had a big smile on her face. They said,
"Well, of course she did. She was driving a Range
Rover." So there's your head of state able to actually drive, unlike in North America where heads of state don't get to drive.
Yeah, I like it. She drives her own stuff, and she drives the right stuff.
Yes,
and smiles whilst doing so,
as every Land Rover owner would do, right?
Well, she knows how to enjoy herself.
Good for her.
The old lady knows how to have a good time.
Moving on from Range Rover news, There was a nice article in Autocar out of the UK called Meeting Mr. Land Rover Defender. And Bill Morris, who was Land Rover's chief of engineering at the time, tells the story of how basically the Defender got its name. He was chief engineer of the Series 3, and he said there was a three-stage, and if it should mean something to our listeners, there's a three-stage project to move into what became the Defender. They had gone around the world and met with some of their customers, trying to understand their needs and wants. Toyota and were starting to eat their lunch, and they had bigger engines. So they said so that was the first thing they heard from their customers was they wanted bigger engines, more power. So stage one was to put a V8 or a bigger engine into what became the Defender. Stage two was to make it a coil-sprung truck. Which they end up using Range Rover chassis from, or Range Rover frame. And stage three was to do some redesigning of the vehicle.
That will happen next year, as I'm told.
Yes, it took them like 25 years to finally get around to stage three. But
more like 30. But
even Bill Morris said he doesn't think anybody was upset that it took them that long to they didn't get to stage three and do the redesign of the vehicle.
Yeah, because I will be upset if they screw up that process.
And you know they're going to screw it up.
Of course.
I already know you're going to be upset. You're not going to like whatever they come up with. Unless
there's going to be a lot of people who don't like it.
Of course.
I will settle for disappointment, but I don't want to be upset. There is a difference.
I will settle for disappointment. I think we might have a show name. I will settle for disappointment. So that's a good article. You might want to read it. I kind of did some highlighting of what occurred there, and there was other interesting bits about how Land Rover and Range Rover were kind of two separate entities for a while, and then there was confusion when they came to North America because it was Range Rover of North America is how they sold the Range Rovers here, and then as they started coming out with the Discovery, that caused confusion. So I think that helped to hasten the naming of what became the Defender. It's not clear in that article, but also kind of helped form up Land Rover as we know it now, and being one company with the three families now is what's becoming. We have the three families of Range Rover, Disco, and Defender. I did see a Defender Sport on the road in the wild on Friday when I was in Pittsburgh.
You mean a Discovery Sport?
Did I say that? What did I say?
Defender Sport. Defender Sport. I'd like to see. I would like to see that too.
I did.
Does that just count as the D90?
Yeah,
It's about as sporty as the Defenders get.
True. I did see a D110 this weekend.
The Adventure Edition, maybe? I don't know.
I saw two D110s. No, I did see.
I've seen a few 110s.
Yes, you have.
I don't have to go far either to see them.
No, you don't. But I was in Pittsburgh on Friday evening, and I saw a Disco Sport in the wild driving by, and as I told Harold about this, I said, they look really good from afar. When we saw it up close at the Pittsburgh Vintage Grand Prix, and it was okay. My issue, I think, with the Disco is the inside. It's the interior. It just looks like every other modern car, and that's not necessarily. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It doesn't have individuality for what I think a Land Rover should be.
Yeah, sanitary yet lacking soul.
Yes,
even the outside is fairly similar to every other SUV on the market at this time. It's a little different.
Yeah, certainly the products produced by Ford.
Well, the only thing
I wonder why.
Yeah, I don't know.
The only thing I think Land Rover has that gives that little distinct thing is now they have that sloping rear roof line, which which does not carry over into the full Range Rover, but it does in the Sport, it does in the Disco, and it does in the Disco Sport now.
Yeah, that's not that unique.
It seems that's the only unique thing that I can see when I will look at a modern Land Rover.
Not the only thing truly unique I see anymore is the green oval.
Well, what you want to see that's unique is a black oval. Those are the cool ones.
Well, yeah, just as long as it's not a blue oval.
Well, there was a time.
Well, yeah, that's the problem.
I disagree. I think Ford did a lot for JLR Imperial, more than BMW did.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, BMW nearly ruined the company, in my opinion, and Ford, I think, saved them. And Ford, especially, did wonders for wonders for Jaguar, which is now carrying over into Land Rover as well. And the best thing they did was to combine those two companies. Really.
Correct. Yes, I agree. Yeah, we'd agree on that. And Tata's been good too. They certainly haven't done anything to cause them harm.
Yeah, my only gripe with Ford is I think that they inserted too much of their influence into the product design of the newer models. Other than that, I think technologically Ford has been really good for the company.
Yeah, and has helped out the reliability and such things.
Well, it's hard to make it worse. To be honest, I mean,
Well, I think it's perception at this point.
Well, yeah, but I think they've done a lot for product quality. Absolutely, they have.
Right. Well, actually, which goes to another article around JLR, and this is a specific Jaguar news item, was that JLR, the Jag part, they're going to do some price cuts in at least in North America to help encourage newer buyers, younger buyers, and millennials, and they're going to get the XE. Is going to next year, or 2017 model XE will start at $35,895. That's US dollars when it launches, and then which is actually, granted, that's a lot of money for a car, but it's definitely less money than some of the other competitors out there for it. So it looks like Jag's trying to, pull in those younger buyers.
Well, and the other thing is it really gets Jaguar back to their heritage, if you think about it, because Jaguar, of course, has always been about luxury and performance. Their big three words back in the day were grace, space, and pace. But along with that came value, and Jaguar was always known for being a good value. Back in the 70s when the E-Type came out, it was faster than a Ferrari, looked better than a Ferrari, even according to Enzo himself, and it cost half as much. It was a good deal on a very, very fast car, and
it looked good.
Yeah, they were, and going back prior to that, the XKs were the fastest cars on the planet, and they were affordable.
Right. Yep. So, well, it sounds like, as you said, they're trying to get back to their roots, especially here in North America, with some price cuts and try to get in those the buyers. They're also going to begin a new program. Looking for the name here. My apologies. Called Elite Care. That's going to launch with their 2016 models. It offers a 5-year, 60,000-mile limited warranty, the longest among its competition, with free scheduled maintenance during that period. Plan also covers roadside assistance, connectivity features. All new Jaguar models will be defined, I'm sorry, I'm reading the quote here. All new Jag models will be defined by both their design and performance, and now a highly attractive ownership value proposition. So they are trying to help out with the reliability issue perception. Speaking of pace, the Jag F-Pace details have emerged and have come out. So they're coming out with their own SUV. And,
sort of.
They're coming out with their own SUV as all.
They've come out with their own badging for an existing SUV from their sister division.
Because they need to make some money. Apparently, it's free money now. You're printing money when you make an SUV these days. I mean, you look at Porsche's done it, Bentley's moving towards it, and Land Rover's been doing it for years. So now Jag is getting into that field or that market.
So when will Land Rover come out with a nice sports car?
Yeah, Land Rover needs to make a 2-seat roadster. Yeah. There you go.
Please no. I'd much rather have. I guess maybe because of where I sit, and think, I'd much rather see Jag come out with an SUV than Land Rover come out with a sports car.
I think it would work better.
Interesting. It would have to be 4-wheel drive. Would it go off road? What would be its weighting depth? What would be the breakover angle? What would be its approach and departure angles? These are things we care about.
Unless they chose to bring back somehow the Rover Cars label.
That's true.
Isn't that owned by the Chinese now? I think that label's still out there, but it's not owned. I don't think it's owned anymore by. As
I understand it, the rights to I think basically the company and everything about it went to the Chinese, but the name itself, I think, ended up back at Ford.
Oh, okay.
It was some strange, multifaceted transaction, and I think the name is it's dead, but I think it is owned by Ford, and whether or not that moved with Land Rover or not, I don't know.
Think the name is dead. I think they still produce some cars in the UK that still have the Rover name on them, as a Rover car name. I don't think it's dead.
That is actually true. There are still Rovers out there.
Okay.
Yeah. Shows you
Sadly, the way trademarks work is you can actually reclaim names that are not used. So they would have to be using them somewhere, at least to maintain the name.
Of course, that would be under probably UK trademark rules, too, which is probably different than ours.
It means nothing to the Chinese either.
Yeah.
That is definitely true. That is definitely true. And finally in the news, this is we've talked about this a couple of times over on the podcast, and it's not specifically around Land Rover, but it is about car culture, and I've seen it, and so maybe I'm wrong on this because I've seen it, what I thought to be that young folks didn't seem to really enjoy cars. And just another article that I had seen that kind of counters that by saying the car culture isn't graying. This was on Autoblog. Of course, we'll have a link to it in the show notes, but saying it's changed. It's not that it's not the same car culture as maybe we grew up with or we understand. It's more changing. There's now Teslas in particular kind of seem to be where the younger folks are looking towards. So maybe car culture isn't going away, but is definitely changing from what we thought it was.
Yeah, I don't know that it was necessarily. I wouldn't have used the word graying as the word. I would say it's maybe dumbing itself down, but I don't know about graying. Just seems like people are into stupider stuff now than they used to be.
Oh, people are always into stupid stuff. El Camino, really? Those hot rods. I never understood that Ford hot rod thing. That to me, that was always. You have this.
Well, you don't fully understand cars either, so.
Oh, I see. Is this where we're going now? Everybody has different tastes.
Yeah, and there's no accounting for it. That's for sure.
There we go. But it is changing. So there, and it has changed. It always will change. But maybe it's not going away like I had worried it was going away.
No, I don't think so. I mean, people say that the car, is kind of becoming a non-thing, but I don't think so. I think
people are always going to. I think people are always going to like jumping into a car and zipping down a nice windy road.
Oh, it represents freedom and individuality, and I think that's not going to go away quickly.
Maybe not quickly, but that segment's going to change. I think there's still a lot of people that see the automobile as transport, and that's it. As these more.
Yeah, sadly, there's a lot of people that don't understand the difference between a car and a refrigerator. So, I mean, it's just, a road-going appliance for them. But there always have been those people, and there probably always will be those people. But I think the segment of the population that enjoys it as an enthusiast thing, I think they're still around, and I don't think they're shrinking.
I would agree that they're still around. They're not shrinking, but I think the ability to not to be an enthusiast and become the majority will be more obvious with self-driving cars.
Yeah, that's entirely possible.
Because then they can roll the roost a little better, and to the point where it's the roads will be designed, transportation systems will be designed, houses will be designed around not owning a car or not having your car. Or having a car that comes to you somehow. You go to work at 8 in the morning, car shows up at 7:55 every morning. You don't have to keep it in your driveway, as an example.
I think that may be true, but I think that at that point, then the car becomes something you play with on the weekends.
Yes, absolutely, right. But I think to our point, and we're saying the same thing, is that segment of people is probably not going to diminish too much, but it will be more obvious and more of a hobbyist thing than it currently is.
I mean, I'd be fine with that actually. Just not have to have a car for my regular transportation, but or have some sort of autonomous self-driving thing that'll take me on my errands during the week, but then just play with the car when I felt like it. I'd be fine with that.
Yeah, I'm mixed about it. There are times when it would be certainly nice if you're taking a trip and like I've done this all the time. I go, and I could use the half-hour trip to do something a little more useful. Why can't the car drive me and get me there? But then there's the part of me that enjoys driving, and sometimes I do want to drive with all the windows down and the music up. And
well, I think it's entirely possible you could have a dual-mode vehicle too. But
right.
but the thing is too is that you have your vehicle that's your driver now, and you have your vehicles that are what you play with when I let you play with them.
Hey, now.
Well, in a sense. But, I mean, the point is you have recreational vehicles, if you will, and your transportation vehicles, and they don't necessarily overlap all the time. So, I mean, I don't see that that's a huge thing.
I think it's huge. I don't think that we're ready for it. I don't think we've anticipated it, all the changes that are coming. That's my point, I think there's this revolution that's coming. And it may not be like revolution one day to the next. It may be over 5, 6, 10, 15 years. But I think there's certainly a revolution coming that I don't know that we are, I wouldn't even say prepared for, but or maybe understand.
I think it's more evolution than revolution.
And it may very well be. I mean, certainly you were in the midst of it. If going by that, because you already have cars that have lane change departure, they can make sure that you're going down the road and stay within the lanes without having special equipment inside the road. You've got cars that can automatically stop themselves. They can maintain a speed limit no matter what that speed limit is based on even on the cars in front of them.
They're certainly more aware of all things related to their operation and where they are, and perhaps even they know when they're being watched.
Ooh.
Or tested.
Ooh, that too. Spoilers, don't get ahead of us. Coming up soon, we'll be discussing diesel cheaters of the world. All right, so that's the news segment, and we will be back in just a moment on the Centresteer podcast. Welcome back to the Centresteer podcast. This is episode number XXX. And we're going to talk, right now, we have set aside some time to discuss a topic that is close to our hearts and has recently in the news, as you diesel engines. Let's just get to the point.
Triple extreme subject matter.
It's sexy. And, we like diesel engines.
Really?
I have one of the affected cheating devices. I have a 2013 Jetta Sportwagen TDI as my daily driver, 6-speed.
Yeah, I'm holding on to one, too.
And it's close to our hearts. And as you probably saw in the news, if you're not aware, the facts as we understand them.
If you've been under a rock for the past week.
That's true. It's actually, it made big time. It certainly made the major news outlets.
And, of course, the social media.
Which is the major news outlets.
Yeah, that's true.
That's where I see things. Volkswagen admitted and was accused and admitted to cheating on the EPA testing of their vehicles. And the CEO of Volkswagen resigned. He's being replaced or has been replaced. They admitted that they had a cheating device, quote unquote, or a cheater system on the vehicle, so that when it went in to be tested, it would know it was being tested and it would turn on all emission controls. When the vehicle was not being tested, all the emission controls would not be engaged, and the car would pollute 40 times, I believe, more than it's supposed to during normal when it's the devices, the emission controls are on.
Up to 40 times the legal limit of the oxides of nitrogen. And the important thing to notice here is that it's not the emissions of the hydrocarbons and carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide are not really affected by this. It is primarily the oxides of nitrogen that are being emitted in excess of standard.
And those ones that contribute to asthma and I think other and pollution. Right?
Respiratory ailments, yeah. Oxides of nitrogen combine with ozone in the presence of sunlight to form smog.
Ah, there we go. So this is, yes.
Interestingly, though, when oxides of nitrogen are produced from your tailpipe, they are colorless and cannot be seen. It's not until they react that they become the smog that darkens the skies in the large cities.
So it's not, you don't immediately notice it until it combines with in these certain conditions.
Right, and it as a colorless gas as it comes out. The fact that the Volkswagen is producing so much more of it, it's not meaning that they smoke.
Correct.
Unlike all the ignorant jokes we've been hearing for
right.
the past week. The big difference there is it's not the same as a diesel engine where the fueling rate has been turned up and they do what's known as rolling coal with the big black plumage coming out. That's an entirely different emission and an entirely different problem.
Right. Yeah, which is some of my fellow citizens here in the United States like to do that with their pickup trucks and blow out a lot of black dust.
Which is actually another emission. That's what's known as particulate matter. And that's primarily, it's partially burned fuel, but it's very close to pure carbon. And it's not regulated in the same manner because it's not considered actually harmful to the environment. It's what's known as a nuisance pollutant.
Right.
Still annoying, but
Oh yeah, yeah.
it's a different emission from what's in question here.
Right. So what is in question is that Volkswagen has cheated on these tests, and Volkswagen's presence here in the United States is pretty big when it comes to diesels. Although the overall diesel use of in the United States, the market is something like 3 or 4% of the auto market, as far as strictly with diesels. Whereas in Europe, it's over 50% for diesels, and of course, this is rolling around the world. Land Rover has sent out a communication saying that they are not engaging with any cheating devices or software. BMW has also said the same thing, and BMW was in fact one of the other testers that was done, and they did not violate or cheat the system.
Well, I can't imagine any manufacturer at this point is going to step up and say, "Oh yeah, we cheat too."
Yay! Well, in some ways, maybe you should. You'll get cover from Volkswagen.
Well, you'd think this would be the time if you really felt the need to admit. But I suspect that even if they were cheating, everybody else is going to say, "Oh no, we're not cheating."
Right. Yeah. Point taken. Point taken. Little side interesting fact that I'd like to bring up is that the place that lab that caught Volkswagen ultimately cheating was West Virginia University, which is not far from podcast headquarters here. They are just over the border in southwestern Pennsylvania in Morgantown, West Virginia. So kudos to them for finding this out. They actually had gotten a grant from the International... Yeah, I just had it.
It was an international concern of some sort.
International Council on Clean Transportation, a nonprofit, provide independent science to government agencies that regulate the environment. And so they actually had hired the university, quote unquote, gave them a contract, and to do some standard tests on diesel cars. And they did the Volkswagen, and they also did BMW, and they were shocked, I think was the word. They didn't use that word, but pretty much shocked that Volkswagen was cheating, and they tested and tested and tested.
Well, in fact, the results were so pronounced that they thought there was a problem with their equipment or their methodology, and they had to go back and re-examine everything they were doing to make sure that the numbers were real. And it's not that their testing revealed that Volkswagen was cheating, but that the only logical conclusion they could draw from it was that Volkswagen was cheating somehow.
Right. An interesting little line that I saw in here. Of course, I can't find it when I need it. Right? I should do more research and have this ready to go. But there was a remark made by the gentleman who they talked to from the International Council on Clean Transportation. His last name, German. I just found that funny.
Well, it's not a surprise actually, because a lot of this came from Europe. I think, in fact.
His name's John German.
John German. Okay, yeah. Well, I believe that this first came into question because of things they were observing in Europe with the diesel over there, and they commissioned West Virginia to study the cars in this country. But it's not. It didn't start here.
So I have two questions. I found the comment that I found interesting here, which was that John German, who was with the International Council on Clean Transportation, the group that commissioned the test, he says German immediately suspected Volkswagen had done something not completely unheard of in the car business, installed what's called a cheat device.
No, it's not unheard of. In fact, Volkswagen themselves did something that defeated emissions controls about 10 years prior, although it wasn't really done specifically to defeat the emissions controls, but the things they did affected the emissions, and they failed to notify the EPA, so they got in trouble for that. I believe I believe it was one of the General Motors divisions got into some trouble for the same thing. They modified their computer to raise the idle speed when the climate control systems were active. That changes the emissions picture slightly, and they failed to notify the EPA of a potential change to their emissions strategy and retest it based on that change. So technically that's considered a cheat. One of the more notorious actual cheating episodes that I came up with was something that happened in the heavy truck industry about 5-10 years ago. They employed a system whereby the longer you drove it, the more emissions your vehicle produced. It started out fine, so in a sense, when you're testing, of course, you're not driving it all that long. So once you've driven it for a while, it starts to gradually turn things up, if you will. And by the time you've gotten across the country, you're actually running pretty dirty. And it takes a long-range test to discover that. And in fact, the West Virginia study had researched that, and that's why they did their testing of Volkswagen as a long-term road test. They actually drove from L.A. up to Washington State to put some long-distance miles on it to see if maybe that was a factor.
And I think that's a critical thing to point out here is the testing was done on the road, whereas the normal testing is done in we'll call it a lab, on a rolling road.
It actually is done in a laboratory, yes.
And it's done with those two rollers that just a dyno tester effectively.
It's called a dynamometer, yeah.
Dynamometer.
It puts a load on the vehicle to simulate road driving.
And that's when and Volkswagen figured out a way to know that was happening, so that testing would be
actually not very hard to do in modern vehicles.
Clearly not. A lot of inputs.
And there's a lot of sensors in the vehicle, and the modern vehicles, actually thanks to our Department of Transportation and the safety regulations and their requirements for stability controls, the vehicle now knows the rotating speed of all four wheels, and in fact, they usually have accelerometers in the vehicle to detect cornering forces and acceleration, so it's not hard to tell when the vehicle's not actually moving, but the drive wheels are rotating. And the only way that happens is if you're in a test mode on a dynamometer. Plus, of course, there are steering inputs with that as well, so first time you turn a wheel, you're not on a dynamometer.
So there's
turn a wheel on a dynamometer, and it gets very spectacular very quick.
Yes, it will.
I can tell you from experience. I have been there. I have seen it.
Yeah.
Even at low speeds, it gets exciting in a hurry. But at 60 miles an hour, it would be catastrophic.
Yes, it would. Yeah.
So, the wheels are strapped down very tightly. They never turn. So if I were devising a cheat mechanism, I would have all of my systems operational and legal until the first time I turn the steering wheel, and then I turn them off because I know there's no possible way I'm being tested.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Under the EPA test scheme, which involves a dynamometer.
So has this happened before? Is this some of the discussion as we maybe get into more of an analysis phase of this? This is supposed to be, many people were thinking this is the end of diesels, that this is maybe the end of Volkswagen. What's the thoughts? Have we seen something comparable before, especially in the diesel area? I know that in the past, it's a leading question. We tried to have diesels here in the United States several years ago, well, maybe 30 years ago now.
I think this really is an impediment to the acceptance of diesels in this country, and it's never been as popular here as it has in Europe. And I think this has the potential to be a big blow in that regard. And one can look back at history to 1979 when Oldsmobile tried to make diesel engines to save fuel, and they failed to fully develop the engine before it was introduced to the market, and it was a reliability nightmare. And it hurt Oldsmobile dearly, but it also hurt the acceptance of diesel engines. And for a long time, people didn't want diesel engines because they remembered the fiasco of the Oldsmobile.
Right.
I think this has a potential for being the same problem.
I'm going to disagree, and I'm not disagreeing just to disagree with you, but I do think it's while, yes, it's going to have an effect. I think it's different. I think we're at a different time, different age. There's different information. Back then in '79, you had 3 news sources. Now you have a bazillion news sources. Whether they're good, bad, or indifferent is immaterial, but you have different things going on and different ways people get information. And I think we know more now than we would have done then. And I don't know that people are looking for diesels, I think, here in the United States. And now there's several companies that are coming forth. Not only has Volkswagen been on a forerunner of bringing diesels in, but then you have BMW offering a diesel, and they're fine. Land Rover certainly finally bringing in diesels. We're well aware and happy about that. And even Chrysler through the Jeep line is bringing in diesels into the United States. Directly.
The problem with that is that the credibility of Volkswagen is shot. So any inroads that they did as far as that is gone, and the problem is the real problem is that Volkswagen has been marketing them as clean technology and calling them the clean diesel, and now people are going to say, oh well, they're not clean. In fact, Volkswagen had to cheat in order to get them passed, and the reality is that the cheat had nothing to do with whether they were clean or not, because they were very clean when the systems were running. It's just that Volkswagen would shut the systems off, and I don't think that was done for the purpose of clean versus not clean. I think that was done from a standpoint of longevity. The other side of the coin with all this, with the emissions control laws, is that you have to meet certain requirements for pollution, but you also have to guarantee they're going to continue to do so for 100,000 miles. And the system that Volkswagen uses, while it's very elegant, I don't think is all that durable, and I think it's fragile. And so I think they started doing this as a way to extend the life of the system.
Can you expound upon that? I know we've talked about that, you and I, outside of the podcast, and what are the details around that?
Well, the emission system in a modern diesel engine is very complex, and because you have to control both the particulate matter and the oxides of nitrogen. And diesel engines, while they are very good in terms of CO2 production, which is part of what makes them really popular in Europe, because Europe cares more about CO2 than we do, controlling the oxides of nitrogen is very difficult, because that is largely a byproduct of exhaust gas temperature, which is inherently much higher in a diesel. So the manufacturers have come up with these really exotic ways of controlling the oxides of nitrogen with some special catalytic converters. Now, almost all of them use a fluid called diesel exhaust fluid. It's a urea compound that you have to add to a tank, and that fluid is used to periodically clean out the catalytic converter and regenerate it. Volkswagen figured out a way to do it without using that fluid, strictly by using Volkswagen did this strictly by using a little bit of extra diesel fuel injected late in the cycle to create the combustion event inside the catalytic converter. But it required a specially constructed catalytic converter using some very expensive precious metals. And it's more expensive to produce, and it is not as durable.
Does that lead to is that why there's a premium on diesel engines here?
Well, diesel engines have been expensive long before there were emissions control. And that has to do with they're just more material. I mean, there's more metal in the block. They're much more heavily constructed, more durable, and the injection systems are more complex. So there's more cost there.
So, but back to the way Volkswagen does the combustion, as you said, and adds late to the cycle. So, do other companies use this system? Is this something that can be repeated?
I think a lot of why the Volkswagen had the cheating, if you will, I hesitate to use that word, but I think why Volkswagen had this problem was it was done to prolong the life of the system. Because I think that some engineer figured out it just wasn't going to last the full 100,000 miles.
Oh, I see. Okay, so you're saying so this late in the cycle that they would burn in the diesel, they would burn in the catalytic converter. That may not allow that catalytic converter to last 100,000 miles.
Well, yeah, I think, and it's not necessarily because of the diesel thing. I think it has to do with the way their catalytic converter is constructed in order to utilize that technology. It's a different type of catalytic converter, and it's just not as robust as the ones that everybody else is using that use the urea fluid.
Understood.
And another thing to point out here is that we're talking strictly about the 4-cylinder TDI, the 2-liter TDI. Volkswagen's other TDI engines actually use the urea catalyst and are not affected by this problem, and they are not subject to this cheating scandal.
So how do the ones that do use urea, how does that work? Is that something you have to add periodically to?
Yeah, you've got a separate tank in your vehicle, and you have to buy this fluid at the store, and you have to add it.
So do Passat drivers, or do big trucks, and is the Land Rover owners going to have to do this?
Probably, yeah.
Is that something that, or is there some sort of reserve tank that when you go in for normal service, the dealership then adds that in?
Well, I'm sure that they probably would as part of their service, but really, I think it's something that has to be filled more than once per oil change, you might say.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think every couple tankfuls of fuel, you're adding fluid.
How much? Like, what are we talking? You need like a gallon of this per tank, or do you need
About that, yeah, probably.
Really?
Just
Okay.
depends on how much the system's using, and it's not necessarily cheap.
Okay.
And if you do a lot of driving on the open roads in this country, you'll drive by a truck stop, and they've got the big sign out front with their fuel prices listed. The bottom line now is DEF, diesel exhaust fluid, right there on the list with their pumps because they're buying it that often. You know, you're with a long haul truck, which uses the system too. You're filling up the fuel tanks with diesel, and you're filling up the exhaust fluid tank with exhaust fluid.
So has that been going on for time immemorial?
No, probably since the emissions standards came about.
Probably in the 70s.
No,
80s.
probably the last 10 years.
Oh, okay. It's because
it's much newer.
Because I haven't heard about this really until you mentioned it, and
You don't pay attention to things you don't have.
That's true. That's true. And I didn't need to worry about it.
And with your Jetta, you don't have it either, so I don't think you even understood it existed then.
Exactly. Yes. Although I do smell, I do have a urine smell periodically coming out of the back of that
Yeah,
thing.
and I don't think that has anything to do with that.
Why is that? I don't know. What is that related to?
That sounds like a personal problem,
it's not.
actually.
It's not.
But you should know that one of the possible solutions that's being discussed for all this is retrofitting all the Volkswagens with that system.
Wow.
And it might come to that. It just depends. I'm not sure where they're going with all this. 'Cause
be-
I don't think that
don't
simply recoding the computer is going to fix the problem.
Well, what if they did turn on all? Do you have a sense of if they turned on all the emissions all the time? Would that reduce performance? Would that reduce fuel economy?
Well, I think it will
sense of
to
that?
some extent, but I don't think it's going to be that pronounced.
Both or one.
Well, they kind of go hand in hand with a diesel.
Right.
And the thing is that a lot of people have said that's the only reason why they get such good mileage relative to their EPA rating, and really a bulk of that difference is because the EPA rating doesn't replicate actual driving conditions. So with all diesels, you will beat the EPA sticker rating. It just happens that way. I think that the difference related to the so-called cheating, maybe a couple miles per gallon.
Which to me would be acceptable.
Yeah, I mean, I could live with that, and I think that probably they will try just disabling the cheat, if you will, and making all the systems active all the time. And
right.
Maybe they do that and then just expect to replace their systems more often. I don't know. It remains to be seen what they work out, and that's sort of the short term on this is that, all the vehicles affected will be recalled at some point, but Volkswagen first has to figure out what they're going to do. And then that has to be approved by the EPA as being an acceptable fix.
Right.
And they're facing possible fines or definite fines at this point?
Well, I mean, nothing's definite until the government says it is, but potentially, fines of up to $37,000 per vehicle. And I think there were...
I think it calculates out to like $19 billion.
Yeah. I know there were 11 million vehicles potentially affected with the problem, but not all of those were sold in the U.S. Again, it's an international problem.
No, I think that's all that. I think there were definitely a lot more sold outside the U.S., but I think the ones in the U.S. still totals out to be 11.
Right. So that fine would only be on the ones sold in the
yes.
U.S. So you could take 18 billion divided by 37,000 and know how many vehicles
are affected.
Yeah, I'm not that good at math.
No. But it's basically anything, any of the diesels from 09 on. It's the Jettas, the Beetles.
And any Volkswagen product with the 2-liter common rail TDI. The earlier versions of the TDI are not affected because they don't have the same system. And the common rail was introduced in 2009.
Ah, I see. Okay.
So it's Jettas, Beetles, Passats, Audi A3.
I don't think Passats had the 2-liter.
It was available, yes.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
Not all of them were sold that way, but it was available, yes.
What is this going to mean in specifically the United States? I mean, I think Europe, they're going to deal with that. The governments in Europe have pushed everybody over to diesel because they thought it was the quote-unquote cleaner way to go about things.
Well, and it is in terms of CO2, which is what they're more concerned about. They've only recently started to care about oxides of nitrogen, whereas that's been a bigger thing here.
Right, smog.
Yeah, we're more concerned about air quality and smog and what our sky looks like than greenhouse gas and
what you're breathing
warming.
and what you're breathing.
Well, yeah, I understand that, but the
coming from Pittsburgh and remembering what the air was like and that we were
Right.
breathing that crap. I'm down with that.
Understood, but CO2 is a factor too in terms of the global warming effect, and that's historically been a higher priority in Europe than the other stuff,
Right.
and so I don't think that this is going to be a huge factor for them because again this is strictly an emission of oxides of nitrogen, which is new to them anyway. They'll just say find a better way to fix it.
Right. So what do we think is going to happen to diesels in the United States, in North America?
It's going to be a big hit short term. I think long term we're still going to be okay, but it's a setback.
I don't think so. I think this is going to be isolated to Volkswagen, and I think because you're hearing clearly that the other manufacturers are not subject to this or not having an issue.
Yeah, but there's plenty of naysayers out there saying, "See, I told you, diesels were dirty."
Clearly,
I think it's going to hurt everybody. It's going to hurt Volkswagen the most, absolutely, but it's going to hurt everybody at least in the short term.
Yeah, I guess I don't see it. I think those who like diesels are going to stick with diesels because they may cheat, they may lie, but you always go for the crazy ones. Yes, I've waited 3 days to tell that joke. Thank you very much.
All right, well, yeah.
No, seriously, I think it didn't go over as well as I thought. I think people that like diesels are going to stick with diesels, and
that's true. But I think it's not so much. The people who like diesels are a small portion of the population, and what the manufacturers need to do is get more people converted, and that's going to be a much more uphill process than it was before.
I guess. And what percentage of the 3 or 4% or so that it is the diesel market in the U.S. What percentage of that is Volkswagen or Audi?
Most of it.
Pretty significant.
That's what I thought.
Chunk, and a lot of them now are feeling betrayed.
Oh, sure.
Even if I wasn't an owner of Volkswagen, I would feel a bit betrayed at this point. Just as someone who is a champion of the diesel concept, I feel betrayed by this because Volkswagen again had done all this effort in marketing it as clean and calling it the clean diesel. And while it is still essentially a clean engine, now there's all this other stuff involved in that, and they've got a black eye, and the public perception is that they're not clean. Hence all the stupid pictures of locomotives spewing coal with Volkswagen logos on the front of them.
Well, did you expect anything else?
No, but it's still annoying. It's still disappointing, and it's still upsetting, and it has me feeling very disappointed in Volkswagen.
I think that's your bottom line takeaway. It's on Volkswagen.
Like a fallen hero, if you will.
Absolutely, completely. I agree.
Well, I think that from what I read, that the German government is going to highly scrutinize all of the diesel manufacturers, at least in Germany. I don't know how far they can reach out with that.
Well, they have to. They have to look into their stuff.
Yeah.
Well, and South Korea is doing the
Absolutely.
same thing because I think South Korea is concerned about it, and it's going to roll around the planet. There's no two ways about it. It's going to roll around the planet. Well, we will continue to follow Dieselgate or Dieselgazi or Diesel Guzzle. I don't know what the other names it's been given as this continues. As you know, we are big fans of diesel engines here at the Centresteer podcast, and having my entire fleet of vehicles is all diesel, right? Yes.
With the possible exception of your lawnmower, you are a 100% diesel fleet.
That's true. My lawnmower is gasoline.
You're in possession of one functioning spark plug.
I am. So we will continue.
We're working on that one too.
All right. Oh, can we convert that to diesel? Diesel lawnmower?
Yeah, that's possible.
Ah, cool.
It's either that or electric. Take your pick.
Electric.
Actually, I'd love to see a diesel-powered lawnmower. I think that'd be cooler than hell.
That would be cool. And now, the M word.
Last month, we explored the engineering concept of interchangeable parts and traced its evolution from the earliest days through the growth of the American firearms industry leading up to the American Civil War. Today, the story continues. With the mass production of interchangeable parts established by the arms industry, the technology then began to spread to other industries. First, to the clockmakers, naturally, as they were already involved in helping the gun makers develop the concept. Next to benefit were the sewing machine makers, which makes sense as the textile industry was one of the first to benefit from the earlier Industrial Revolution. Then came the harvesting equipment, steam engines, locomotives, typewriters, then bicycles, and finally that newfangled contraption known as the automobile. One individual that was instrumental in the introduction of manufacturing technology to the automobile industry was Henry Leland. Leland learned engineering and precision machining while working at Brown & Sharp in Providence, Rhode Island. As Brown & Sharp was a major supplier of machine tools for the arms industry, it's no surprise that Leland would soon find himself working for several gun makers, most notably the Colt Firearms Company. Later, Leland would have his own machine shop business, producing engines for Ransom E. Olds, who would make automobiles with the Oldsmobile brand. This experience with both machine tools and automobiles afforded Leland a special opportunity in 1902. When Henry Ford found himself trapped in a battle with his financial backers, he left the Henry Ford Company in March of 1902 and went on to found the Ford Motor Company the following year. Meanwhile, the investors in the Henry Ford Company hired Henry Leland to appraise the factory and tooling so that it could be liquidated. Instead, Leland convinced them to keep the factory and to let him run it. The Henry Ford Company was reorganized as the Cadillac Automobile Company. Thanks largely to Leland's focus on precision manufacturing and interchangeable parts, Cadillac would soon be known as the standard of the world. Henry Ford drew inspiration from Leland's use of interchangeable parts, but perhaps for different reasons. Leland believed that interchangeable parts improved quality and allowed him to build the best cars in the world. Ford believed that interchangeable parts made the production process more efficient, and together with the moving assembly line allowed him to make cars so cheaply that even his own employees could afford to buy them. Thanks to Henry Ford's revolutionary ideas and methods, the automobile would grow from a rich man's toy to the everyman's transportation and workhorse of small business and farmers alike. Along with this growth in the automobile industry, so it was with all sorts of things mass-produced with interchangeable parts. By the middle of the 20th century, virtually everything that was made using interchangeable parts. Even houses and small commercial buildings were being built from prefabricated interchangeable panels. It was the golden age of American manufacturing, and the mid-20th century was the high point. That's when it all started to go downhill. We had won the war to end all wars, and we had put a man on the moon. But somehow we lost sight of the idea that anything worth doing is worth doing right. We became complacent, and we failed to notice that we had competition. Of course, this problem is not uniquely American. The British automotive industry was plagued with quality problems in the 70s and 80s, and things just haven't been the same since then. And the Japanese, once a shining example of high quality and low cost, have recently had to deal with rising production cost and falling quality. Today, manufacturing is a truly global business. Parts are made in several countries, assembled in another, and then sold somewhere else. Many manufacturers in developing nations lack the quality assurance skills of their more industrialized competitors. Sometimes communication errors can happen, which result in faulty specifications. Also, details are often overlooked or corners are cut in an effort to reduce cost. However it happens, the result is that interchangeable parts often are not truly interchangeable. Repair parts often won't fit the vehicle for which they're ordered without trimming, adjustment, or outright modification. Sometimes they're just so wrong they have to be rejected outright. There's much debate on the merits of inexpensive aftermarket parts versus genuine original equipment parts purchased at the dealer. But the sad truth is that all too often the genuine parts come from the same third-world suppliers and suffer from the same quality and fitment problems as the aftermarket brands. It's like we've gone backwards 100 years. Manufacturers make parts that they think are close enough, but it takes a skilled craftsman to make them work. Perhaps it's the circle of life, or we just need to wait for the developing nations to catch up. But I have to believe that quality and interchangeability will eventually improve again. Until then, it's more important than ever for the consumer to rely on an experienced professional to ensure that replacement parts are suitable and the repair is done properly. It's been said that a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. But in a supply chain, the most important link is the final link, the person responsible for selecting and installing the parts. With do-it-yourself repairs, this final link is often the weakest link. I certainly don't want to discourage DIY repairs, but do-it-yourselfers need to be aware of their own limitations. An improper repair can have costly and sometimes even disastrous results. If there are any questions or doubts about the suitability or fitment of replacement parts, people should ask for help from a properly trained and skilled professional technician. It is the best and strongest final link in the supply chain.
And welcome back to the 30th edition of the Centresteer podcast. It is now time for our adventure segment. I'm calling it adventure segment now. Joining us live via Skype is our friend of the podcast, friend of the show, Graham and Louisa Bell from A2A. Welcome.
Hola.
Hello.
And
welcome to Centresteer XXX.
Harold enjoys saying triple X. Where are you
Because
located?
I can.
Because you can. Where are you located at this moment?
We're still in Washington. Well, actually, we've returned to Washington.
Washington State.
Washington State.
Seattle.
Sorry, yes, Seattle
Yeah.
area. We were at a friend's house. He's got a Range Classic and a Series.
Classic.
It's-
Ooh. What color is a classic? I like
Range Rover
classics.
Classic.
Yeah, I like classics. What color?
No, it's awesome. It's fully kitted. It's really nice.
Nice.
Yeah, we came over for a barbecue.
And in South African, you call that a braai?
Braai.
Braai. I see that word in your book, and I never
close.
said it. I was close. Braai.
Not even close.
So you got to Alaska, and now you're back out of Alaska. Tell us about your trip to Alaska. Since the last time we talked to you several months ago, you were in Mexico. Now you've gone through the United States, into Alaska, through Canada, and back out again.
Yeah, it seems like Alaska was sort of an anticlimax. You spent all this time, gearing up for the trip, and then you just went and came back.
They were scared of snow. Scared of the snow.
We had Land Rover issues.
Really? Surprise!
We had Land Rover
Well,
issues.
they couldn't have been much of an issue. You made it back.
Oh yeah, no, she's limping a little bit now, but we're getting half shafts sent from.
That's your American accent. Come on,
That's
man. Come on, brother. Don't do that to us.
half shafts.
Half shafts.
They were getting them sent over from the UK, and then unfortunately they sent the wrong ones. So we had to, organize it all over again. But it sounds quick, but it takes a very long time. So it was really delayed, and by the time we left, it was already like the end of the season. Everybody else is coming the other way, and we were heading up. And the first night back on the road, man, it was just raining and freezing and just nasty.
What is freezing?
But it was a wonderful drive, man.
What temperature is freezing?
African, it was freezing. I was unhappy.
So like 60 degrees Fahrenheit, right?
Yeah, you had to put on long pants.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, I remember one of those
Well,
ones.
he is. I know our listeners can't see it, but we're on Skype in a picture, and Graham is wearing flannel.
Well, he is in Washington. I think it's mandatory.
He's gone native.
Oh yeah, and I got the hair, and I've been listening to Nirvana, and
They don't let you cross the border if you're not wearing flannel.
Louisa, are you wearing flannel? It's tough to tell. Oh yeah, she is. She's wearing flannel too. Wonderful. They've gone local.
Or they've stolen someone's clothes.
That could be.
actually, this is my son's.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. All right. So how did you find Alaska? Did you enjoy it? Did you like it? Was it everything you wanted it to be?
Yeah, well, no, obviously we didn't have enough time there. I mean, we were literally there for a week.
Right.
And then the snow started chasing us. Yeah.
Now wait a minute. Hold on.
It was
Actual
wonderful.
snow or flurries? Like, was this just like snow in the air, or are we talking about inches on the ground?
We heard rumors of snow.
Yeah, and until you have to shovel to get your vehicle moving, you don't have a problem with snow.
Rumors? Hold on, let's pause on that. They heard rumors of snow, and that could have been several latitudes north of them, for all they know.
Enough to make them evacuate the entire state.
Exactly.
We evacuated back south. They're like, screw that. Snow's not for Africans.
Well, there's rumors of snow here too, but it's not until January or February.
You got houses. With roofs and walls and windows that are
that's true.
insulated. And
That's true. We
we're
do.
in a rooftop tent with 2 kids.
Fair. All right, fine. Be an adult about it.
Yeah.
So where did you get to in Alaska? Did you how far in did you get? Did you stay in any hotels, or did you just camp on the side of the road?
Holy moly. Hotels are not
Yeah.
in our vocabulary.
I believe he's driving his hotel.
He is.
Yeah.
In his house.
I don't get it. No, it was wonderful, man. The Yukon was, BC and the Yukon was just wonderful. The camping was excellent. We saw bears and moose and elk and things that I don't know what to call, and a whole bunch of furry things. Wonderful road, really, really interesting. Alaska, we didn't see anything that didn't have two legs because there was just so many hunters out. Every pull-off was just full of dudes in their ATVs and their RVs and all that stuff. Although we did almost hit a moose in the Kenai Peninsula.
Yeah.
That was a close one.
Moose are big. They're like huge animals.
Holy roadkill, Batman.
No, that would be more. That's rover kill. I think the moose survives.
That's dinner for a few days. So.
Yeah, we would have just pulled the panels straight and thrown that thing over the back and, just eaten it for a few days.
Yeah.
We have a real problem here with deer kill and the damage it does to the vehicle. I can't imagine multiplying that by the mass of a moose.
Yeah, there's
We have a fair amount of problems with moose up here in Vermont, and usually what happens is you knock out the legs, and then the whole moose just falls on your vehicle. So it's never too much fun.
Well, if it just falls upon the vehicle, you can take it home and eat it. That's okay. It's when it keeps on moving through the windscreen and decapitates the driver that it concerns me.
And then you don't know whose blood is whose. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. That's a good show title.
We made it up to Anchorage, headed down to the Kenai. To Homer. Beautiful down there, man. Wonderful. It really, the whole experience just made me really want to be an outdoorsman. All I can think of now is having a couple of wonderful axes and chopping down trees and making a cabin and...
Skipping and jumping, pressing wildflowers.
That's pretty much not the idea I have.
Anytime I can get a Monty Python reference in, I will.
Okay.
And I've been suppressing it the whole time you've been talking about moose.
Well, yeah, that's right.
And the lovely furry animals.
The lovely furry animals.
Including the majestic moose.
Of course.
Majestic moose.
A moose once bit my sister.
We got to get the podcast back on track.
Sorry about the faulty subtitles. Those responsible have been sacked.
So you made it to Anchorage. How are the kids doing? I think your youngest turned 12?
11.
Yeah?
Yeah, she turned 11 on...
11. A couple days ago, right?
Yeah, a few days ago. Yeah.
Did you have a nice birthday celebration?
We had a quiet birthday celebration. I don't know.
There's this horrible tradition that we've gotten into where...
Oh, God.
In Ecuador, we were in this tiny little town which had nothing on offer, and it was her birthday. And we even drove to the next city, but they only had gigantic, horrible Chinese dolls. So we didn't buy her anything except three bottles of olives and some beach
jewelry.
So she woke up on her birthday with another 3 bottles of olives. But she's so wonderful. She's like, olives, that's amazing.
Did she make her own olive oil? What?
Well, I was thinking she could, explore her career as a bartender, making drinks for the two of you or something.
Chin chin, old sport.
But the worst is, one of the bottles that he bought, she tasted it and she was like, oh my God, it tastes a bit weird. And I checked the bottle. It was with Chardonnay in it. So, this one, yeah.
Yeah, they didn't check that. But we do have a nice little...
You really are getting her started, aren't you?
You sure you're not French? There's some French influence. Getting so early. Now your son is 16 now, and he's driving. Has he been helping you out with the driving of the Defender?
No, not really.
No,
not really. No, this he's not that level yet.
Okay.
The thing is, especially with these long distances, I'm in tune with the vehicle, and I don't like to let even Louisa drive because I feel everything, and I'm listening, and I'm smelling, and you know what I mean. I'm in it. I'm in the zone, and it's my responsibility. I had to get us up there and back down. But she did 7,000-mile round trip in 2 or 3 weeks.
Wow.
Perfect, man. No problems.
That's good.
She was very good. But Canadian fuel must be some kind of weak source because we were getting horrible mileage. Terrible mileage.
Yeah, I know it's extremely expensive, but especially with the conversion.
No,
rate.
it's not.
Actually, it's not.
No, really?
Or the US.
Yeah.
Because the conversion rate between the U.S. and Canada, it was like 4 times as much to fuel up my disco when I took my disco into Canada once. Never do that again.
Really?
It was outrageous.
Well, I think things come and go, and it depends on what part of Canada you're in. Just much like it is, depends on what part of the U.S. you're in as far as fuel cost.
Right.
Yeah.
What any interesting stories that are going to be added to your next book? Because I assume you're working on a new book.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, we're working. Any advanced stories you can give us here, exclusive to the podcast?
Oh, no, man, that's pressure.
Yeah, because I didn't tell you were going to join us on the podcast in advance or anything.
Well, I didn't know I had to, give entertaining anecdotes. I thought I'd just wing it and drink beer.
Same thing. Drink beer.
Really, what's the difference?
Yeah.
It was extremely boring. There's absolutely nothing to it.
So no one should bother going then.
No, don't even. No.
Don't go to Alaska.
Come on, man. Look at the photo. Come on.
So, what did you put? Have you put photos on your website, or are you still using Facebook? I know you're using Facebook a lot and pushing photos out there. I saw some of the pictures with your daughter and your son and yourselves.
Yeah, we put a couple of photos up, but what we're actually working on is getting a lot of our video organized, and there's some freaking epic footage. Louisa did a 5-minute video for me, and it's wonderful. It's fantastic. It really, she made it look really hardcore, just mud and water and just beaches and. But then she also mixed in a bit of the urban and us being dumbasses and stuff. So it was pretty interesting. So that's what we're working on now.
We call that Rover porn.
Rover porn.
Is that anywhere anybody can get, or is that coming soon?
Coming soon.
Coming soon.
To an internet connection near you.
Sounds like we need to have them out here for our annual club holiday party.
Well,
we could screen their video as a special
you know,
feature.
As you know, they're always invited. They're always welcome here in my home, and I think in your home too. So
I might let them in, yes.
Yeah. So they're just waiting for their imminent arrival.
I'm just saying that if they were here for that, we could screen their video alongside of the club production that you produce.
Actually, that would be cool if you
a porn double feature.
I have no video. There's no video for this year.
Yeah, I know. It could be kind of slim.
It's going to be slim.
So we need them.
We need them.
Single feature.
Our local club has we have a holiday party every year. It's the second Saturday of December, and it takes place right here, actually, right in
Centresteer Studios.
In the Centresteer Studios, and so we need some content this year. We could actually have these guys as our content.
Yeah,
that would be cool.
You're now content. You're now content.
Cool.
So you got to Alaska. Anything interesting? Any exciting stories, anecdotes? You went through fires, I believe. There were fires in British Columbia. There were some fires in Alaska. Did that cause you any issues or difficulties?
No, not really. We had more rain than anything else.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, by the time we left, it was wet.
Did you meet up with a friend of the show, Dan Cole, of the 4x4 podcast, or had he...
He's in Asia. He went over. Right. He left just before we left. He went over to Asia.
That's right. He's in South Korea.
Yeah. We met some nice Land Rover owners though, up there, and we spotted a couple of series just lying along the road, just waiting to be rescued there in Canada.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So, and I also.
Did you pick any parts off of them?
Eh?
Did you pick any parts off of them as you went past?
I don't know what I can use from a series on my Defender.
Well, I know there's at least 7 parts.
At least 7? Well, those are probably the parts I won't need. Okay, which 7 parts are they? Come on.
I'll send you a list later.
Oh, well done, Graham. Well done. You challenged him, and he's not even had any bourbon. So.
No, not yet.
Not yet.
Yeah. So no. Well, we might have some big things going on here back in the States. I can't really talk about it right now, but that was one of the reasons we came back so quickly. We got contacted, and anyway, like I said, I can't really divulge too much. We'll find out tomorrow whether it's going to go ahead or not, and I'll let you know. You'll be the first to know.
We're the first to know. Podcast exclusive. Because I know you did post on your Twitter feed and I think on Facebook that you're thinking about changing the name of A to A. Any movement on that? Any discussion? Any decisions? Because it's it was Africa to Argentina, and then it was Argentina to Alaska, Now it's what
just need
Alaska to Aliquippa.
You
I
just
think.
need to pick some more A's. That's all.
Yeah, well, Aliquippa. That's not far.
Asia, Alaska
Ooh,
to Asia,
Alaska to Asia.
yeah, and Asia to Australia.
Or Alaska to Australia.
Alaska.
I think what
Yeah.
the feedback has been is that we should kind of just stick with A2A because I don't think anyone really cares what it stands for anymore. They kind of just know us as A2A. So if we're going to make it adventure to, no, this one's, where was the other one?
Adventure to anywhere or something.
I don't know. We
Actually,
can make whatever we want. So
I think
you
I
just-
have it for you. I think I have it. I just thought of this in my head. Africa to adventure. Because the end is open ended. It's you're from
right.
Africa. You're from Africa, and adventure is open ended. Alaska adventure, Africa to adventure.
That sounds pretty. I like that because.
Boom, done right there. I give it to you. It's yours.
Oh, just drop the mic. Drop the mic.
Thud. Boom.
Okay, we'll think about that. I like that because it doesn't lock us into anything. That was the one thing I didn't really enjoy.
And it anchors you because Africa anchors you from where you're from. The adventure gives you unboundedness to wherever you want to go. It could be Mars,
It could. Space. The final frontier.
Altair 6.
Well, actually, Mars is just up the road from us, so that's not too hard.
That's
to
true. There is a Mars, PA. It's not far away.
Yes, in fact, I was listening to a football game on radio just the other night, and it was one of our local high school teams playing the Fighting Planets of Mars High School.
Yes. And there was and actually we're not also far from Kecksburg where there was a UFO incident. Another one. Yeah. Apollo, PA. There's Apollo, PA. Not far away from Mars, PA.
It's on the way to Mars,
It is Apollo's on the way to Mars. Yes.
and there's a moon.
There's a Moon Township. That's where the airport is.
Right.
The airport's actually in Moon Township, Pittsburgh International Airport. All sorts of cool references.
Yeah. I can't wait to visit your part of the universe.
So you're coming here. You're coming. Is that what I'm hearing? You're coming here to
Yes.
South. All
Yeah,
right.
just not right now, obviously.
That's
We're
fine.
gonna head down to California, and then probably across to Florida, and then up to you guys.
Yeah, but we need to get some dirt under the tires.
Yeah.
We want to go do some serious off-roading and stuff. There's a Defender get-together in the desert. It's called Alvord. We've been invited to. Hopefully we can make it. It's with Chris Johnson. Carl Johnson, sorry. How can I forget his name?
Yeah.
Carl Johnson from a company called THIRTIETH. Him and Brian from Defenders Northwest have organized that one. So we might head there. There's
Paul Davies, NWOR, in Sedona, Arizona. They've got that also in October.
that's not the NWOR, that's Northwest Orlando.
Damn it. It's something. It's Northwest something, all right?
Yeah, so there's a bunch of Land Rover meetups going on. Arizona, California, the desert. Is Oregon? Oregon?
No.
No?
Yes, Oregon, the desert one.
See, you did it. And and then so we're going to meander our way across. That's the idea.
Good. Well, that's good. Hopefully you'll be here sometime in the near future.
You'll be here in time to complain about our winter,
Yeah.
since you're soft and all that.
I did encourage you to stay north in the United States until January at the most, and then drop south. But
Yeah.
that was my suggestion. That's your decision, of course.
Yeah, things happen. Shit happens.
It does. It does.
But but we look forward to it. I mean, we haven't really had a proper white winter ever.
Well, there could be a nice winter here.
There might be. I mean,
yeah.
of course, I moved here for the mild winters. You want to see winter? Go to Minnesota in January.
Yeah, you're talking feet of snow.
Well, you talk about freezing weather and cold temperatures and and rooftop tents. And as a kid, I used to go camping in weather that was below zero, and that's below 0 Fahrenheit, which really matters.
Yeah.
None of this Celsius stuff.
Yeah.
Snow is not your problem. It's the cold and the ice. That's your problem. That's your real problem.
Yeah, I've been camping at minus 40 Fahrenheit.
How did you survive?
Well, you learn survival techniques, you learn shelter-making techniques, and when you're a kid, you're young and stupid, and you're indestructible.
That's
And
Right.
But yeah, it was that cold when we got up in the morning. We tried to fire up a pot of water to make some coffee, and the pot of water was boiling on the bottom and frozen over on top.
Yikes. That's cold.
We decided we were done. We packed up and went back to
Yeah,
base
it's time to
camp.
go home. Yeah, you're done then.
Went back to base camp.
Why not? Why not? Good.
Sounds beautiful. I think we'll just stay in Florida.
Yeah. Well, he's talking Minnesota.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's a chance it could happen in Pittsburgh, and I don't want that to be.
Well, Pittsburgh is not that bad. It doesn't get that cold, and if it does, it's only for a week. Or maybe 2 at most.
Yeah,
it's not that long.
it rarely gets below 0 Celsius. Think about it.
True. Right. Yeah.
Oh, that's easy peasy.
Oh, okay.
Easy peasy. You're fine. Well, you can stay in the house, and then you don't have to go outside. You can actually sleep inside the house.
On the floor in the kitchen.
No. I have a whole space available for you right here in the podcast studio. You can sleep down here.
Whoa.
There's plenty of space. So
Thank you.
And a big fridge, I'm hoping.
yes, and you can have your own fridge and your own cooker and your own fireplace. So and free internet connection.
And theoretically, out of my place, we might even be able to provide a heated garage for your truck.
Oh yes,
She would like that.
heated garage, and you could do some.
Well, your
repairs.
truck will get spoiled by that in a hurry. That's for sure.
True. And it's like a 30-minute drive, 35-minute drive, so you could head out there and work on the truck.
You know, it's been pretty amazing being in the U.S. proper now. I mean, I think, the last time we spoke, we were still in Mexico. I mean, it's been so mind-blowing just to be in the great old U.S. of A.
What is the biggest effects you've had, or things you've noticed, or what has occurred to you?
How similar it is to life in South Africa.
Oh, really?
Yeah, strangely.
Other than the weird accent.
Yeah, except for that.
Ours, not yours. Yeah.
Our chicks are way hotter.
Probably.
And there's actually teenage girls around. I mean, here in
Yeah,
America,
that's
there's only little people,
Yeah.
like little girls, and there's old women. But
Yeah.
there's no one between the age of like 12 and 18. They don't exist. My boy's been looking. They don't exist.
Well, that's because they're locked up. They're kept away from you.
They see the Africans coming and lock the kids away.
I'm still getting used to the idea of little people, because I think everybody compared to you is a little person, aren't they?
Yeah,
Brian? You're
yeah.
a pretty big dude.
Yeah. I mean, it's just the shoes, baby.
Baby.
So what other differences have you, or similarities have you encountered between South Africa and America?
Similarities?
Or differences, your call.
Well, okay, I'll tell you what stuck out for me. Your police are invisible.
Yeah.
Interesting.
They're invisible. I don't know how they do it, especially down in Texas.
There's a cool bar that you need to go to in Alabama, and Jeff Aronson's been there.
In Birmingham.
In Birmingham, which is the Pittsburgh of the South. It's our sister city. That has the Series 2 cutaway that is turned into a bar.
Okay.
Yeah, Jeff was there a couple months ago. I think it's in the latest edition or the edition before of Rovers Magazine.
If not, you can contact Jeff for where to find it. But and the most interesting thing is not just that this series truck has been made into a bar. It's that all the lights on this series truck actually work.
That's because they're wired, not using Lucas wires.
But it's something you just don't see.
Actually, it's still a car, though.
Well, it's just something you just don't see. Is all the lights working?
Right. So, what are you working on for the future? I told you to get you to join the podcast, we'd push some books. I know you have a book called "We Will Be Free." It's available on Amazon for $4 on Kindle, which you probably don't make too much money on, but you have a hard copy edition, which you probably make a little more money on. And I would encourage our listeners to go out and buy the book and help out Graham and Louisa. They are traveling the world on their own. They have no other income, and they are they're making a living, and they're doing their thing and going out and enjoying and doing what we would all want to do if we could.
Living the dream.
So for $4 or $5 or $10, I think it's $11 for the hard copy edition off Amazon in America. It's cheap money, and it helps you guys out, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you can actually buy the book online via our website, which will be great because we get a higher royalty from it, and then going through Amazon. That's for the hard copy, obviously, and it's $20.
So $20 American?
American.
$20
yes.
American right from your website. And your website is?
www.a2a.expeditious.
Sorry to put you on the spot for your website.
How do you mess up www?
Triple W.
Or as we say in the computer world, dub.
Or triple W.
All because triple X, triple W.
Well,
yeah,
why not?
Yeah, AdaExpedition.com, is that right?
Yes.
We'll have a link in the show notes, of course. So go out to our website, which is Centresteer.com, and then we'll have a link to the show notes to your website. And you can buy the book for $20 American. Is it signed?
No.
Okay.
How much
You
does
can
that?
get it,
How
but
much
then
does that
it'll be
cost?
$25.
You can get a signed one, but then it's $25. Yeah.
Yeah, because we got the route it to us and then sign it and then we route it to the.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Or come to the party at my house for them, and they'll sign books.
Oh yeah.
And then, are you working on a new book?
We're working on a couple. Right now, it's all conceptual. But we actually, the one we've been working on the background, the filler, some of the photos and concepts and that for quite a while now. So yeah, there's going to be a couple more coming out within. We'll have to see what the future holds, but hopefully within 6 months. Within 6 months, we'll have the next one out, and then within a year we'll have the other. So our quiver is filling rapidly.
So that means at some point you'll have a box set of 3 books.
That's nice.
Yes,
A special edition.
like the Lord of the Rings.
There you go.
We will be free.
That's where the money is.
Volume 1, 2, and 3. So what are your plans in the immediate and long-distant future? Do you have any sense of that yet? Are you going to Asia? Are you going to Australia? Are you... what are you doing?
We are going to try. We've luckily got another 6 months in the US. When we came back in, they gave us a top-up. Hit us with another 6. So we're like, sweet!
So that means you could just keep ducking across the border and getting another 6-month play every time, right?
Maybe.
Yeah, that's not really traveling the world, though. That's just being a refugee in America.
Okay.
Careful using that word.
Yeah, that's a sensitive topic right now.
Yeah, you're going to have to edit that one. Sorry.
John, cut that.
Yeah, I can edit that out.
Now, John's going to have a lot of fun editing this one.
Yeah. That's
Just
fine.
1 beer is like 5%.
So what are your plans in the immediate near future? Are you going to Alaska? Alaska. You've already went to Alaska. Are you going to Asia? Are you going to Australia?
The idea is to get over probably from New York, get the Landy to Europe, then tool around in Europe for a while, do some stuff in the UK. Pretty much, the Land Rover needs a bit of TLC, some new doors and stuff like that, and that's the best place to do it, obviously.
No.
Then down through Europe.
We could probably help you out with that.
Oh, sweet.
We'll talk.
And
we'll talk.
and I've still got your awning, John. John, I've still got your awning. It's still hanging on the side of my Land Rover.
What warning is that?
Awning.
Awning?
Awning.
Awning. Oh, yes. Yes, my
Yeah.
awning.
John, I got your awning.
Awning. Yeah, you can say it correctly. Awning.
I got your
Excellent.
awning.
Awning. There's a lot of accents here in this part of the world.
Really?
Yeah, you know. So
we need to get them a Pittsburghese dictionary.
we do Pittsburghese. There is one. It's online. Pittsburghese.com. So you're going to go. Are you going to visit the ancestral home of Land Rover? Are you going to Sully Hall? Is that your plan? Yeah.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
Should let them know ahead of time.
Yeah, I wonder if you could set it up and get a ride on the Land Rover Experience track in their own vehicle.
Ooh, I doubt they would do that.
I doubt, but maybe for something really special like they might.
They might. Yeah, it's worth asking them. Yeah, who knows what they do, but it's worth asking. But we do have friends there, so we can put you in contact with. We have some listeners and some friends there in the UK, so that could maybe help you out. At least have a contact there.
That'd be cool.
Well, I think these guys are living proof that once you have a Land Rover and you're traveling the world, you have friends everywhere.
That's true. Maybe they'll catch up with Lizzie Bus in Russia.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Russia's not really on the cards. Look, this is the thing, and I like what you said about Africa to anywhere or Africa to adventure. Is that if opportunities are elsewhere, or if we decide to go elsewhere, then we can find another route. But my idea now is I really, really want to go around Australia. I really want to tour Australia, and I really want to go through Europe. I've never been there, and I want to go through the Balkan states and get through the Stans and all that to Asia. And then once we've done that, go around Australia and get soft, and then who knows? Maybe ship the Land Rover from Australia to Anchorage.
Nice.
And then do a proper tour of
Alaska.
and then come back down and visit you fine folks on our way back to South America, because we really miss South America.
We'll go back to Africa.
Or we go back to Africa.
Oh yeah, I just got done watching. Are you familiar with Ewan McKellen? I mean McEwen.
Great.
He did the Hugh McGregor. Sorry, what am my name? I just watched his Long Way Down. He went through Africa. That was really cool. I watched Long Way Around, which he did. They went around the world through Russia and in the United States, and then watched Long Way Down. That was pretty cool. I mean, it was motorbikes, but it was cool. It was.
It's quite inspiring for us as well. I mean, that was our overland of porn before when we were planning our trip.
Right.
Problem is, it's a very different reality. What they did to what everybody else is doing, because they had, tons of cash, backup teams,
support teams. Yeah.
I mean, they're sitting around eating hot dogs at a freaking border crossing while everybody else is sweating.
Right.
So we are better than them. That's basically what happens. And we got kids with,
You're certainly more efficient because you're doing it with far less.
we had far less. I'm sure if we had more, we'd be less efficient.
Indeed, they are. They're very efficient. All right, so we look forward to you coming here to the podcast studio, and we'll have a special, even if it's not a normal podcast recording time, we'll have a special podcast.
We'll make time.
We will make time just for you guys, and we'll have an A2A podcast special here in the studio with you guys live.
We need to have like a book signing event or something. Get people to show up and have a stack of books. And
we could do that. We could be their book purveyor of signed books or something.
Oh, there you go.
We'll talk about it. Do something interesting. Yeah. I want a picture of their rig outside of my house, with my house in the background. That's my goal.
Or we could take a picture of their rig at my shop in front of your other vehicles.
No. He wounds me. He likes to hurt. I sent my
that's what I do.
My 109 went in for service and needed some standard things done to it and some other equipment operations and upgrades. And he's like, it's going to be a little longer. Why is that? Oh, well, the transmission has problems. And it didn't even go in for the transmission. The transmission was fine. It didn't exhibit any difficulty or any problems. And now the transmission's spitting out bits of metal. Yeah, it's not good.
He went playing with it in the jungles and stuff, because all those jungles surrounding you guys.
Yes, that's right.
Broke it. Yeah.
I failed to properly John-proof the transmission.
John-proof.
That's important. That's very important.
It isn't my job.
Yeah, that's true. Anything else you wish to share with our audience or let us know about your upcomings and goings? And where can people track you down, know what's happening? I know you're on Twitter, you're on Facebook. Can you give us those handles and IDs?
Okay, well, the Facebook page is a2a.expedition, and the Instagram account is
graham.r.bell.
And that's GRAEME.BELL. Correct?
That's right.
Absolutely. And you can, and if you're one of our listeners and you can't find that, I'll have links on our show notes if I remember. I should. If not, message me on Centresteer.com or Centresteer's Twitter feed, and I'll hook you up with those if you have a question about what they are, because I do follow those myself. So good stuff. And you got good pictures and good information. And I have to say, Graham, I enjoy the random calls I get from you in the middle of the afternoon. And Graham's like, "Hey, what's going on, brother?" And we chit chat for 10, 15 minutes. I really enjoy that. It brightens my day. So thank you for that.
No worries. It's actually interesting because I haven't spoken on the phone very much in the last 3 years. So I think our conversations are very special to me as well.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that. That's very good. Well, you're also very special to the podcast. We appreciate you joining us, coming on, giving us an update on your adventures and where you are and what's happening. So.
Special time with John. I'm still working on that.
That's on you. That's on you.
Well, yeah, it is a problem of mine. Yes, definitely.
That's right. So thanks for joining us, and we will continue following your adventures, and hopefully you'll be on the podcast soon again to update us on your next adventure.
Awesome. Thank you very much, guys. Really appreciate it. Always enjoy it.
Thanks.
Fun as usual.
Well, thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you very much.
Take care, guys. Don't drink all the beer. Hey, save some for me.
No. There's plenty of bear.
We'll make more.
We'll make more.
All right.
There are now like 34 breweries in Western Pennsylvania. There's
Spiritual time.
It is most wonderful. Although Asheville, North Carolina, is now the microbrew capital of the country.
See, now when they come out, we'll put together a brewery tour for them.
Hell yeah! No, seriously, when you guys come out, we're going to do a thing. There's going to be a party. You know that. I'm having a party. It's going to be here. It's going to be in the basement. We're going to invite everybody I know. We're going to have a party. I know who. I'm going to get a photographer, take pictures.
Well, I also know of one brewery in particular where you could organize a special event for them.
We could organize a special event for you at Helltown. Absolutely, could figure something out.
Helltown. That's like Louise's freaking spiritual home.
See, you got your Helltown sticker right there.
Yes, Helltown in Mount Pleasant, PA, zip code 15666.
And it was called Helltown long before it got the zip code. They made sure it got a 666 zip code because it was called Helltown already. And then you by the way, you also have to get up into Shelbourne, Vermont, and you got to visit our buddy Morgan.
Yeah, absolutely.
That sounds awesome. When you've taken care of your snow issues, then we'll come.
That'll be next July.
Is that July, June 15th? What?
It's I think a 2-week window in July.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right after the 4th of July, the snow starts to recede.
Okay. All right, dudes. It's been wonderful to chat to you.
Same here. Thanks for joining us.
Really enjoyed it.
And
we've been fun, guys.
Yep, we'll see you soon.
All right, take care.
Guys.
Take it easy.
Bye-bye.
Hey, John.
Yeah.
John, call me.
I'll call you. You call me. We'll see you. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Welcome back to the Centresteer podcast, number 30.
XXX.
And we'll now turn it over to our heritage segment, Morgan, to talk about the British invasion at Stowe.
Thank you very much. British Invasion is one of the largest all-British auto shows certainly in New England. I'm not sure about the entire country.
What about Old England?
Well, that's kind of unfair.
They just call them car shows over there.
Peterborough. Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So they usually have it sort of late September. So it was the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 18th, 19th, and 20th, I think, this year. The Friday, they basically just have a driving tour and dinner out on the town. And then so they have the car show on Saturday and Sunday.
When the cars are no longer drivable?
No, most of them are still drivable.
Okay, just checking.
How many are trailered in?
A lot are trailered in. But a lot, it's probably about 50-50.
Am I spoiling things?
No, not really.
Well, as I understand it, one entrant had driven all the way from a certain island off the coast of Maine.
That is true. Unfortunately, not in a Land Rover vehicle.
But it was British.
It was British. It totally counts. So yes, I did bump into Jeff from Rovers Magazine while I was there.
Yay!
In his
usual.
Triumph Spitfire.
Yes, definitely. So yeah, it's a nice show. I love it just in general, living in the state, because you just start seeing British cars all over the place, British vehicles. It's a lot of fun. It's only about an hour drive for me, so I just sort of head down in the afternoon and peruse the show. This year, there was actually a slightly smaller showing of Land Rovers than last year. I was a little surprised. There was probably only about 25 Land Rovers on the show field.
And
naturally,
how was that different than last year? Was that less, you said?
Yeah, it was. This year it was basically one full row of the field, maybe shy 2 or 3 vehicles that they had tossed in at the end of the row. Last year it was at least a row and a half, maybe 2 full rows. So last year there were quite a few, like G4 vehicles, Camel Trophy knockoffs, and stuff like that. This year it was probably about 50% series, and the other 50% were Defenders and just a couple of Range Rovers. And they did have one Evoque, but not much too new. But I spend most of my time just sort of chatting with all the Land Rover nuts out there and handing out podcast business cards. So hopefully some of the thank you. Hopefully there are some new listeners this month, and hello to all of you if that's the case. Definitely had a lot of fun. There.
So did anybody say anything about the podcast? Like, were they surprised? I'm just kind of curious.
No, there's a couple of people who were familiar with it who I talked to last year. So yeah, they're definitely all excited about it. So, yeah.
Now, you said something interesting, and it just kind of caught my attention. You mentioned, it's as a local there, it's nice to see the things come out. What kind of got me thinking about that is, do you notice more of them in the weeks leading up to the show? Like they're coming out of the woodwork and getting ready?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, certainly for the week before, you start seeing them just like, again, I live an hour away, so it's not like people are coming up, a week and a half in advance for the show. You see locals with them out and about. So
getting them running again so they can go.
Are they mainly local to your area, or do they come from out of state? Because, admittedly, Vermont is not a large area, but comparatively speaking.
Yeah, there's definitely a large portion who are local, but there are very many who come from out of state. So even from the Land Rover folks, there were lots of people from Maine and Massachusetts and Connecticut. So yeah, they come from all over.
What is the general size of the show? How many total cars are we talking about? Are you 400 or 500? Is there more than that, or what's the acreage? Any sense of scale?
It's the field itself is probably 2 or 3 football field size, and it's
American
fairly
football
full.
Fields.
Yes, American football fields. So yeah, it's a fairly large field, very full.
And so, what are your favorites? Did any stand out to you? Like, it doesn't have to be Land Rover. Just kind of curious. We like cars in particular, in general. But
really,
I saw an MGA for sale yesterday. By the way, 1961 here in not far, a couple miles from me.
There was a very nice V8 MGB that looked like a lot of fun. I am
as
a little
fun
partial.
as an MGB can be, I guess.
Yeah. I am a little partial to the Morgan brand for some reason.
I was going to ask how many of your namesake were there.
Don't understand. I don't get it.
There actually is a decent size collection of Morgans there, and usually they have 3 or 4 of the 3-wheeled Morgans. So kind of surprising for a show over here.
Probably about the only time they can come out.
Probably.
It's probably about all that there are in this country.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't imagine there are that many. But yeah, it's
at least
a fun
not
show.
left.
Squirreled away in someone's barn somewhere.
And any of the more modern Morgans?
I think last year not that
you can tell from 100 feet away, but you get.
They do have some of them, but obviously nothing completely modern. You can't get an Aero 8 here or anything like that.
Well, not legally, but
right. Yeah, you could probably import one and trailer it to the show, but yeah.
Well, all you got to do is get a VIN off of an older one and a couple pop rivets.
It worked real well for Land Rovers.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That and Mini and
Nissans and yeah.
Oh yeah, totally. But yeah, there were some very nice Land Rovers there. Naturally, every year, Jim McCree of High Meadow Farm, which is in Saxons River, Vermont, so sort of the southern part of the state, he shows up. He has his own little museum that he runs at his farm. He now has 2 full-time techs. I think he had only 1 full-time tech last year. But
a museum of what?
Of Land Rovers. This is a Land Rover museum.
Just Land Rovers?
Just Land Rovers.
He owns southern Vermont? In
southern Vermont. He owns about 8 or 9.
You can visit every day?
I'm not sure exactly how the visitation works for his museum. He's definitely, his techs are there, I think weekdays. But he has absolutely immaculately restored a Series 1, a Series 2, a Series 3, and he is currently working on a Centresteer replica, which he went over to the UK last year to sort of shop around for a motor and to look at some of the other replicas that remain over there.
Well, I hope you talk to him about that.
Absolutely. I have some photos, which we will probably see in the show notes. And I do actually have a little audio clip we'll probably play here-ish.
Let's play that now.
Yeah, sounds good.
This lady next to me here in 1966 on Martha's Vineyard. I was a starving student, and I kept seeing these magnificent vehicles all over the vineyard, and I said, they're just fabulous. I've got to have some of these someday, and well, I finally got a few. Well, I've got about 9 now, in various stages of repair. But it's always been a pleasure. A couple of years back, we looked at ourselves, Glenn Parent, Dana, and I, and we said, what are we going to build next? We built the Series 1, a 2, a 3. We built the Defender. And I said, well, I could build something else, but I like Rovers. I said, the only one we haven't built is the original one, the prototype. And that's what you see here. It's in its mid-stage of development. It's going to take us at least another year and a half to build the body on that. But that is the origin of Land Rover. It's a Jeep frame, a Rover car engine, and a fabricated body. And I hope to bring it here to show it to you soon. But it's been a pleasure. Thank you, and congratulations on a wonderful show.
Thank you. I'm going to ask you a special favor. Could you step out of your car by the front and grill this for a minute? I had a question out here. Jim has these 3 cars you see in Concourse, the Center Drive. He also has some other cars out there in People's Choice. And, you know, he's come to our shows, and we think he's a really deserving gentleman. So we have a special award. The chief judge behind you would like to present you with the Land Rover Enthusiast of the Year Award. Very deserving man. Show these folks your award. There you go. Land Rover Enthusiast of the Year. Can't think of anyone more deserving than Jim Macri for this award. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
So yeah, he as he said, he pretty much built the Centresteer replica because he had every other model, which he does,
and because he could.
Absolutely,
we like this guy.
Yes, he's a very nice guy. His collection is great. In fact, he actually my Land Rover, where I'm restoring it, is actually just down the hill from him. So
nice. Oh.
He's kind of a neighbor of my Land Rover.
You know, you really need to head over there with a good video camera and do a little show for us.
Definitely. And in fact, if you pick up the winter edition of Rovers Magazine from, I think it was a year or 2 ago, there was a story showing off some of his museum and some of his vehicles there. Jeff and Zach from Rovers Magazine were over there.
I think maybe I do recall that now. Okay.
Yeah.
And so did he talk about what he's working on next besides the Centresteer? Like,
isn't that enough?
Well, yeah, he's still very much in process on the Centresteer.
But he may have if he has 2 techs in himself, he may be engaged in other things he's looking at. Is he looking for like a Range Rover Classic, or is he looking for the Disco 1?
The Centresteer is definitely their focus at the moment. They seem to focus on one and obviously maintaining all of them. But yeah, the Centresteer right now is basically at rolling chassis state. So
I could see that being all-consuming pretty easily.
Yeah, there's such little documentation out there of the Centresteer that they're really figuring out a lot more as opposed to just finding parts. And
I think there's an outline in the beach somewhere.
There is.
That's pretty much all there was, right? That's pretty much all there was an outline in the beach. Yes. So when you say they work towards maintaining, are these working vehicles? Do they take them out, or do they just make sure that they can run and they stay in the museum, whatever that
These
means?
Are mainly museum vehicles, so they're restored and running, and they take them out to drive them around the hill on occasion, but they're not.
They drive by your truck and make it jealous?
Pretty much. I do actually see their vehicles around town.
I think you could do that with any Rover that's capable of running at this point.
Absolutely. And it's not just my Rover that gets jealous, so I get considerably jealous as well.
Well, pets do resemble their owners in terms of behavior, so.
I think Morgan has two lights off the side of his head there. There's two, one on top of each other. So what else did you see at Stowe?
I'm mostly stuck by the Land Rovers this year because, the other vehicles are very nice and I do enjoy looking around them. But there's a lot more interest for me in the Land Rovers getting to talk to the owners.
Right. So how many Rover? You said there was a row. Is that we talking 10, a dozen vehicles? Was this all the different models, or I assume there was probably not a Freelander there because there typically isn't. But I'm just kind of curious what was there, maybe what wasn't there. Anything interesting stand out?
Yeah, absolutely. So there were about 25 that I counted. So fairly long rows.
That's good showing.
Yeah, totally.
And pretty well distributed amongst the different types too. It sounds like.
Yeah, there were probably 5 or 6, possibly more of the series vehicles. Quite a few Defenders. There were, I think, only 2 Range Rovers, a classic, and slightly newer. I think it was a P38. There was one Evoque.
There was a P38 Mobile. It was actually rolling.
Well, he did say a number of them were towed in on a trailer.
That one I don't think was.
Also, it was unique.
It was a very nice one.
So you saw an Evoque too, you said?
There was an Evoque, yep. Usually there are other newer Range Rovers and Discoveries. I think there were maybe 2 Discoveries.
Do they also have like dealer displays, or is this just simply personal vehicles, or do they also have like does there a Land Rover dealer comes in, brings in the latest stock?
They don't have any dealers who come in aside from classic dealers. So there was actually a dealer there who had a Stage 1 V8 fire truck that was for sale.
Whoa!
Cool.
So that was surprising.
That'd be cool to see. Yeah,
it was very nice. It was funny. I don't know that they fully understood that they had a Stage 1 V8.
Wow, and yet a unique one beyond that. I mean, not only is that unique, but being a fire truck.
Well, anything that comes out of the special vehicles shop is unique in my opinion.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, it was very cool. I did talk to one of the Range Rover owners, works for the Manchester, Vermont Fire Department. And I don't know if you are familiar, but I think it was a year ago, they sold off their FC-101 that they had used in the department for a long time. So it was nice to talk to him. Obviously, he wished they would have kept it.
Yeah, somebody needs to get slapped for that one.
Who got it, and what did they do? More importantly, who got it, and what did they do with it? Have they kept it in its original fire truck livery?
I know it had been sold fairly locally. I think one of the guys, possibly Taylor Congleton, who does a restoration shop that is, I think, shares property with Rovers North, or at least partners with them on occasion.
So it might have stayed
I think he had purchased it, but I don't know if it moved on from there or not.
So it's maybe has stayed within the family of people keeping it in its original form and know what they have.
Exactly. Yeah, but that was pretty cool. He was, I think some of the younger guys on the fire department wanted something a little more comfortable, and were willing to sacrifice some of the functionality.
I mean, I understand that, but that doesn't mean, be careful who you give it to and who you sell it to, and make sure it's going to the right person and the right people to maintain it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, that's just responsible stewardship there.
Yes, exactly. Right. Yeah. I can see it moving on from its time to move on from the active use, but that's cool to know that there was an FC-101 as a fire truck in use in the United States. That's up until a year ago. That's really cool.
I wonder what they used it for. I suppose there's brush fires and stuff that are off road, or
Yeah, definitely some of that. I mean, honestly, around here in the winter, it's fairly difficult to get anywhere. So helpful to get supplies through down any back road or anything like that. So
It could be a quick response thing too to get there before the other stuff can.
Do you know anything about it?
Yeah.
Was it a pumper? Did it have a tank?
It was not a tanker truck. So I think it was mainly for personnel and supplies, but I don't know for sure.
Okay.
More of a rescue truck than a fire truck then at that rate.
Right. Yeah. Which would probably get a fair amount more use around here.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, that was a fun one.
Do you mostly have volunteer fire departments in Vermont? Is that all volunteer?
Yeah. It's town by town, but it is mostly volunteer.
Yeah. That makes some sense. That would make some sense. You'd have probably a truck that made sure you picked up your men and went around, and so you had a good personnel vehicle.
Yeah, usually, if you're on the volunteer fire department, you have to have a capable vehicle and either get to the station on time anyway,
Right.
Yeah, that's a whole testosterone fueled thing around here.
I had noticed.
Definitely. Yeah, it's the same here. But there were quite a few other very, very nice vehicles. There was a very nice red Series 2 that was fairly immaculate as well. It looked
88.
Yes, it was an 88. Most of the Series Land Rovers there this year were 88s. There was a 109 pickup. There was a Series 2 that was there from, I think, Oregon.
That's a long way to come in a Series 2.
Definitely. Even the red one, I think, was from Maine. So that was not a short trip itself. Quite a few hours.
Yeah, that's one I wouldn't mind doing, though. I don't know if I'm quite young enough to do Oregon to Vermont in a Series truck. I could do it, but I don't know that I would do it just to make a show.
Exactly. Hopefully that person was here for other reasons as well.
And a lot would depend on how long you're traveling, too. If you're doing it straight through, there's no fun there. But if you're taking 2 weeks, it might not be so bad.
Well, that's overlanding. That's not going somewhere.
Right.
Yep. There was definitely a nice Defender 110 with a rooftop tent and some nice stenciling on the side. Nice. It's always fun to see.
Any idea what year?
I don't recall the year on that one, no. There was one military.
If it were illegal, it's probably a pretty narrow window.
Yeah, exactly. These were all older legal Land Rovers.
So what was the stenciling? Why did you draw attention to that?
Let's see. I think there was like elephants and camels and stuff like that stenciled on the side.
Oh, neat.
Yeah. Kind of cool theming to it. There were definitely there was Jim Macri. He has a NAS D90 that he's also restored to immaculate condition, so that was nice to see as well.
Nice, but less impressive than some of his other jobs.
Oh yes, definitely.
It's a little bit easier to restore an NAS D90.
Yes. But it actually, that one is a working vehicle. It towed one of the beds for one of the trailers for the trucks, so it does its duties. But yeah, the Centresteer was really fun to look at. Just rolling chassis, seeing how they had set up the drum brake on that. It's actually not like the standard series drum brake. It's actually reversed. It's sort of inside out. So it's got a band on it that tightens down on the cylinder.
Well, that's the way it was done back in the teens.
Exactly. Nice old motor and the chain drive for the Centresteer. That was pretty cool. Interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely different.
Yeah.
What non-Rover vehicle stood out to you?
This year I didn't spend as much time wandering around. There are lots of lots of classics that I love there. As I said, the three-wheeled Morgans are always fun to drool over. There are just so many vehicles.
Sounds a lot like our Vintage Grand Prix with the British Car Day.
It does. Sans the race.
True.
Which for us is just background noise.
Actually, it is.
We never get that far.
We like, here, bzz, bzz, what's that? Oh, there's a race going on.
Oh, by the way, there is a big vintage race here. In fact, it's the only one in the country of its kind.
Yeah.
Just by the way.
By the way. And it's also British Car Day and International Car Day. And every MGB, MGA, MG6, 7, 8, whatever their numbers are, they install, everything shows up. It's amazing, which I suspect is probably somewhere to Stowe, where everything in the area shows up.
Exactly.
If you can roll that day, you're going to roll.
Yep, and that's very much the way it is. It's pretty much every mark from the UK.
Right.
It's a lot of fun. And like I said, all over New England.
Is it free to get into, or is there a fee?
Yeah, there's a small fee. I think it's about $5 parking, and then another $15 for the weekend.
Okay.
For the show.
Ours is free.
I wish it was
not
free.
for us.
That's true. It's not free for the entrance. You're right. It costs like $25 to get your car on.
I've never gotten in for free.
Yeah, neither. That's true. Yeah.
But yeah, definitely same for British Invasion.
Yeah. Gotcha. Cool. And so you go back again?
Yep.
Maybe
absolutely.
Maybe next year with your own truck.
Next year might be a little too soon, but
we're trying. We're trying, Morgan. We're trying. We gotta encourage you.
It is much needed inspiration to go walk around every year, though.
Yes, exactly. Good.
Well, I mean, all you got to do is go work on it, right?
And
Exactly.
you got the
That's
museum.
all I have to do.
And you have the museum over the hill.
Yeah.
Couldn't they help you out?
Yeah, I've had some offers of picking over parts vehicles.
Oh, good.
Wow, dude, you need to take advantage of that.
Yes.
Yeah, you need to. Yeah. All right. Well, what's next up? What's next month for the Heritage segment? Do we have a plan? Can we tease our audience?
Yeah, I'm thinking we should maybe move over into electrical systems.
All right.
The Dark Lord Lucas.
I'm gonna order another can of Lucas Smoke before
Smart
this
man.
show.
I'm glad we got you the new microphone so you can sound.
See if you can find the Churchill smoke injector tool.
Oh yes.
There's adapters for insertion into the fuse box and inline into the harness.
Oh, handy.
Yeah.
So that'll be next month on the Centresteer podcast. We'll be talking, for our Heritage segment, we'll be talking about the electrical system. Is that right?
That's right.
Did I tease that well? Get out your black smoke. Stand by for injection. That brings us to a close. Another edition of the Centresteer podcast. This has been episode number 30.
Triple X.
And we want to thank you for listening to the show. And I encourage you to go out to 4x4 network.com and listen to some of the other shows in the radio network that we are a part of, and go out to our own website, which is centresteer.com, CENTRE in the British spelling, and give us some feedback. You can send us an email. You can also go to our Facebook page, which is Centresteer podcast. You can go to our Twitter feed, which is Centresteer podcast, and give us some feedback. Let us know how things are going. You can also, of course, go to iTunes and give us a rating on there. I don't think I've ever encouraged anybody to do that, but feel free to go out and do that. See what maybe that'll help us out, get us up in the rankings. It doesn't do anything for me personally. It just looks cool. It's really interesting, and maybe somebody will notice somewhere down the road if they're looking for a Land Rover podcast. Again, we are the only Land Rover podcast in the world that I am aware of. So right here from Western Pennsylvania.
Despite the fact that there might be a reason for that.
Don't tell anybody that. Don't tell anybody that. Keep that to yourself. We've met a lot of interesting people, and made some friends.
Made a couple friends, yeah,
absolutely. So if only for that, it's been I think well worth it as we enter number 30. And did you think we'd get the 30? And then we've been doing this consistently once a month for 30 months.
Okay.
I think that's
2.5 years. That's
I
not
think
too
that-
much, but
it's a lot.
okay.
That's a lot. Most podcasts don't get this far, and I think we have gotten this far. So I think
So we're persistent.
we are persistent, and we will continue. So thanks again for everybody for joining us on the podcast. We will talk to you next month in October. This is October, November, in October. We'll talk to you next month in October.
In another month, yes.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us on the podcast. This has been number 30. We'll talk to you again in another month for the Centresteer podcast. Have a great month.
And welcome to any of you who are listening in from the British Invasion show. Let us know if any of you want to call in and talk about your trucks.
Thanks very much, everybody. The Centresteer theme song, Sunset Rider by the Tritons, is available from Nivio's Music Alley. Check it out at music.nivio.com.
Everything I say is a fact.